Hello and welcome to another educational video about screen printing by Catspit Productions. Today's video is a quick tip video. Quick tips for screen printing. I just wanted to address a topic that is often debated or talked about, and that is mesh tension and metal frames. Okay, and a lot of people have the idea or the notion that metal frames just can't hold the tension required for, good screen printing. Now, it's important to note that it is true that most metal frames are stretched at around 24 newtons, and by the time you get them, they probably are going to be around 18, 19 newtons. Okay, and 19, 20 newtons around there is probably going to be sufficient for most, all of your spot color work, most of the basic type of screen printing that you're going to do on a regular basis. It's going to be fine. And it's important to note that if you make screens at home and you don't have the ability to use a tension meter to see what your mesh tension is, basically at home, if you're doing it by hand, I would say, you're going to stretch it as tight as you possibly can by hand at home. That's the best you're going to be able to do without checking it. And, use the maximum tension that you can possibly achieve with your manual stretching technique. And if when you put the screen on the press and you start to stroke some ink across there and you see the mesh roll or move as you go across your stencil, that means you really just don't have enough tension. Okay, it's also important to note that where you get your metal frames can really make a big difference as to how tight the mesh is. Metal frames that are made in the States tend to come to you with a higher mesh tension than those of perhaps China. And I have a screen from China and I have a screen from the US. And we're going to take a quick look and do a Newton reading, a mesh tension reading with the tension meter. So let's do that right now. Let's take a quick look at the two different mesh tensions that we have from an imported screen and a domestic screen. Alright, so here first we have our American-made domestic screen, and you can see I have the tension meter on there, and I have it set on the screen with the meter, going long ways, because you're supposed to take two measurements. You do one long ways, one short ways, towards the center of the screen, and you kind of get an idea of where we're at. And you can see that this 200 mesh American domestic screen is at approximately 20 newtons, which is very good, and that's perfectly acceptable for a metal aluminum frame. Okay, so I could do like some spot and dot, one color halftones, maybe a duotone. You could do some halftone work with this mesh and the mesh tension. Okay, if you were going to do process work, you probably would want quite a bit higher mesh tension. Okay, there it is. There's the dial close up, so you can actually see it's 20 newtons on the American domestic 200 mesh. All right, and now we have a 200 mesh Chinese import screen, and you can see that the mesh tension here is, well, it's just a little above 10 newtons. So that's pretty low. That's a huge, huge difference, okay, from China to American made screens. Obviously, this screen here, at like 11 newtons, I'm likely to even possibly see some rolling when I flood and stroke on the mesh. So this is a poor screen, not something that I would want to use if I didn't want any problems. Okay, there it is, the Newton meter, tension meter close up on the Chinese imported 200 mesh screen, metal frame, and you can see that it's quite a big difference from the American made screen. Okay, so these are things that you want to keep in mind when you're purchasing your screens. Yeah, you could go for the cheaper Chinese screens, but this is this is likely what you will encounter. Okay, so you can see that there's a pretty big difference between an imported Chinese screen, metal aluminum screen, and a domestic screen that's made in the States. So I would say that's probably due to a couple of reasons. One is that, you know, the quality control and the standard of quality in the States is going to be higher than that of China, but also the screens are going to get to you a lot sooner. You know, from the States. In other words, the screens that come from China are going to be in container loads, and who knows, you know, a container load could be sitting around a year or so before the screen gets to you. Who knows, you know? So it has all that time for the mesh to relax. Okay, so you know, my suggestion is that, you know, you try to buy American-made metal frames. You're going to find them a little bit better quality and tighter mesh. And you know, just realize that mesh tension is going to affect many things in your printing, such as your ink consumption, your print resolution, the coverage, opacity, and things like that. So having a tight screen is very important, and in order to have a tight screen, you need a rigid frame, and that's why I use aluminum screens quite a bit in my shop. Alright, that's it for today's quick tip video, just a little bit about mesh tension and imported screens versus domestic screens and whatnot. And if you like my videos, please rate, thumbs up, subscribe, and comment below. I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot for watching my videos, and we'll see you next time.